What's up, sports bettors? We've been running pretty hot on Underdog Fantasy as well as Prize Picks. So, Underdog Fantasy had a bunch of big cashes this weekend, which you can see right here, all types of big wins. And then we also had some on Prize Picks, right? So, I give out all these plays on either YouTube, my Twitter, or both. Literally everything I'm betting on these platforms, I'm giving out. So, what I'm going to be sharing with you today is just a bunch more player props that I found. So, let's go ahead and let's get into it. Let's start out with the EV tool. So I only use two tools to place my bets, right? The EV tool and the OddsJam screen. And they're both very powerful, interesting tools, so we'll go through them. So what the EV tool does is it lets you compare prices, right? Every sports book, they want to be unique. They want to be independent. So they set lines independently, right? If Underdog and all these platforms had the exact same lines, we wouldn't need hundreds of sports books. They wouldn't be differentiated, right? They wouldn't be unique. So all these books try to do it themselves. So what you'll notice is Trey Jones under 4.5 rebounds is minus 140-ish, minus 148 on all the sports books. On Prize Picks, you're getting minus 119 odds in a 5-pick flex. So I explained on Twitter, and I've done this in some other videos, just the math behind flex plays, but you really want to go with 5-pick flex plays on Prize Picks, and it's because you're getting the best odds, right? You're essentially getting minus 119. So when you're betting on Prize Picks in a 5 flex, you should assume, right, that you're getting minus 119 odds. So do we like minus 119 for Trey Jones under 4.5 rebounds? Yeah, we do. All books have this minus 137 to minus 148. So you have one, this column, this OddsJam column, we just copy Pinnacle. Pinnacle is known to be the sharpest bookmaker in the world, so just we copy their odds for this OddsJam column. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 independent data points, sports books with complicated models, taking wagers. They've invested hundreds of millions of dollars independently into their ability to set lines, and they're all telling you the exact same thing. This bet should be priced at roughly minus 145. We're getting it minus 119. No brainer. Follow the value. Follow the math, right? The way that Prize Picks works, and the reason this platform is pretty interesting, is they're not varying payouts, right? Depending on if you select the overs or the unders, as you can kind of see right here. But on sportsbooks, they do, right? Prize Picks doesn't have odds on their platform. They only have lines. So all lines have the same price. But sportsbooks, they're all telling you, hey, the under should be heavily favored, right? The under should be heavily juiced. So in the same way, an investor, a day trader looks for value, it's not different as a sharp sports bettor. We're getting minus 119 on Prize Picks. That's a ton of value considering all the books are around minus 145. So I picked it up. 2.37% profit margin. So a lot of people, they'll ask, they'll be like, 2.37% profit margin, that doesn't seem that great. And it's like, that's crazy. That is insane, right? This game is today. This is why sports betting can be so profitable. And I also say this all the time, but it's the most important thing to comprehend, is I only earn a 3% ROI roughly on my plays. But I'm betting every single day, right? So a 3% return over the course of a month is like 90% returns over the course of a month if you're betting every day. Right? 3%, that's 90% over the course of 30 days. So your bankroll would go from like 1,000 to 1.9K if you started out with an $1,000 bankroll. So all books pricing this around minus 145, we're getting minus 119. We have a bunch of videos breaking down, previously how to back out your edge, your profit margin, stuff like that. But this is one of the first plays I went with. Now, what's different about this odds screen, and the reason it's so powerful, is the EV tool is just comparing prices. Essentially like all these books are pricing the exact same bet, the exact same asset at different levels. It's like having a bunch of different prices for a stock. So like the FanDuel Stock Exchange is telling you Trey Jones under 4.5 rebounds should be worth 148, Caesars 137. So FanDuel thinks the under should be a bit more favored than Caesars, right? So you kind of look across the market at all these books and you're like, damn, yeah, 119 is clearly enough value to justify the bet. This is just logical, rational sports betting, no emotions, following data, following real-time price data, price information, right? These sports books, injuries, everything like that is reflected in their odds. if news comes out, and Kyrie Irving can't play tonight or something like that, sportsbooks will update all their odds, right? And their odds will reflect where the line should be set. So, everything is priced into the market, long story short. It's not like, if players are sitting out or something like that, the sports books don't know. They know. It's reflected in their odds. Just like the price of a stock is based on supply and demand, same with sportsbook odds. If sports bettors thought that the over should be favored, the overs would be at minus 140, right? But obviously the sports books and the sports bettors think that the under should be favored. It's a market. This is an efficient betting market. So we're using sportsbook odds essentially against themselves in some ways to find these like soft spots on prize picks. So it looks like this line just moved, so you won't be able to tail it, unfortunately. But what I ended up betting was Mahomes over 295.5 passing yards. That's really annoying because I wanted to show it, but whatever. The point is, if we can actually go over to the screen right now, what I ended up betting, let's just go through some of these plays, and some of them may have moved, but I say this all the time, if plays move, like, it's okay. You want to play a 5-pick flex. So I'm going to give out, how many plays do I have? It looks like we have 3 here. Higgins over 61 half receiving yards. Joe Burrow over 275 half passing yards. Miles Sanders over 63 half rushing yards. So there's 3. Here's another 5. So I have Matt Duchene over 2 shots on goal. Trey Jones under 4.5 rebounds. Josh Hart over 3.5 assists. Hayes under 3. So like if any of these moved, just pair, a few from here, a few from here, get a 5-pick flex play, and that's what you want to go with. So here's what I ended up going with. Long story short, this is the example I wanted to go through, is I have Isaiah under 60.5 rushing yards, and I also have Mahomes over 295.5 passing yards, right? So what you're going to notice is obviously these players are on the same team, is this is positively correlated, right? So if I take Mahomes over and Isaiah under for rushing yards, you're going to see that this parlay on FanDuel, their same game parlay, it only comes out to plus 222. Now, if you switched this to Isaiah over, it would come out to plus 296. So FanDuel's giving you better odds. So the fact that FanDuel is giving you a lot worse odds, plus 222, you can see right here, plus 296, plus 222, means that these outcomes are positively correlated, right? Sportsbooks, they invest literally tens of millions of dollars into correlation modeling so they can, let people bet on same game parlays, right? So what you're going to notice is like, okay, if Mahomes goes over in passing yards, Isaiah is more likely to go under in rushing yards. And that may be intuitive, that may not be. You can feel free to comment any questions, stuff like that. But what I like to do is like play around with these same game parlays to get a sense of correlation. FanDuel has super complex models based on tons of historical data. If Mahomes goes over, it's more likely that Isaiah is going to go under. So that's an added benefit because prize picks, they don't consider correlation, right? Any flex play is the exact same payout structure. So they're not considering correlation. So we have the added benefit of positive correlation in this play. So some of the plays I went with are there. I can give you an example of, kind of like also how I, think about sports betting as well. So if I go to shots on goal, which is somewhere I find a lot of opportunity, is what you'll notice is so useful about this odds screen is it allows you to compare where lines are set at different levels. So for example, if we scroll through here, there may not be any opportunity right now, but you can see here it's like, Mason McTavish or whatever. Or how about this guy, Mark Shalefi? His line on prize picks is 2. His line on sportsbooks is 2.5. Right? So there's a big jump from 2 to 2.5. Is this good enough to bet? I mean, well, all sportsbooks have the under 2.5 heavily favored, which makes us like the over 2 less. So I'm not sure if that makes sense, but essentially the way I use this odds screen is I look for, okay, where does prize picks have the line just set at a completely different level than the sports books? And then ideally, you don't want the over to be too juiced or the under to be too juiced, right? Like if I'm taking Pierre under 3 shots on goal, what I want to see is sportsbooks have the line at 2.5, and there's not too much juice towards the over, right? Because that would make me like the under 3 more. So the screen, long story short, it's less clear cut than the EV tool. Like the EV tool is very simple. Like when you're looking at the EV tool, it literally tells you your profit margin. And the reason that's possible is you can compare prices, right? Like there are very standard formulas for comparing prices. Here it's like, okay, every book has this roughly minus 145. We're getting minus 119. You can back out your profit margin pretty easily. Now, and that's because, right, these are the exact same bet. It's the same bet. Trey Jones under 4.5 rebounds. It's always graded the same way. If he has, 4 rebounds, it's a loss. It doesn't matter what sports book you're betting on. Now, what makes the screen a bit more complicated, but also there's a lot of opportunity. So even though it's more complicated, I think it's worth taking the time to learn and stuff like that, is you're not comparing the same bets, right? It's not like every book has necessarily a shot on goal prop at the same level, right? So here it's like it's easy to hunt for value in the 2.5s because we know, most sports books have the under 2.5 at roughly minus 150, but it becomes more complicated when you're like, okay, well, given that all sports books have the line at 2.5 around with the under around minus 150, what should the under 2 be priced at, right? So that's where it gets a little more complicated as a sports bettor because now you're comparing lines set at different levels and you're trying to back out, okay, what's the difference between over 1.5 shots on goal versus over 2.5 shots on goal? But anyways, so some more plays I ended up going with on Underdog as well as on Prize Picks. Let's just go through them all. So here you can see 5 I gave out this morning on Prize Picks. Here's another 5. Right here, you get that added benefit of positive correlation. And then finally, you can see right here, here are some plays I went with on Underdog Fantasy. So some other entries. Jamal Murray, under 6 assists. I also took this. McDavid, under 4 shots. That was also, on Prize Picks, so I took it on both platforms. So a bunch of player props to start the day. I say this all the time, but I'm just showing you things I'm putting my own money on. Winning streaks, losing streaks. Again, just showing you things I'm putting my money on. So hopefully, today's a good day. Hopefully you guys are able to tail some of these. On Underdog, you want to go with 3-pick power plays. That's what's mathematically optimal. On Prize Picks, you want to go with 5 flex or 6 flex, which is why you'll notice almost all the plays I'm giving out on Prize Picks are going to be 5-pick flex or occasionally a 6-pick flex. Anyways, let's make some money.